Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Yeah, we are covering Spring Security. This course is going to be about Spring Security and we are slowly making a progress. Okay. So right now there is 2 episodes released for with respect to this course. One is the episode 1 where we talk about mistakes that we do as a developer. Often we ignore security and its importance. Then layers of security we talked about. It is not about only protecting a single layer. It's all about the complete security implementation to the complete infra wherever our production applications is deployed. Okay. Then we talked about Spring Security, what it is, which thing it has to offer in order to protect the application and all. Okay. Then in episode 2, we created our first Spring Security project. There we see what by defaults are available for us. If we don't do any configuration, there is one basic authentication mechanism enabled by Spring Security, which is protecting all the endpoints of our of the application. Then we talked about Spring Security architecture, majorly the authentication part of the Spring Security framework. So when a request comes in, it goes to authentication filter, then to manager, then to provider, and to the user detail service and password encoder. Then we also talk a little bit about the customizing some of the default, which is we are not actually customized it, but yeah, we sort of use the inbuilt custom implementation of whatever provided by the Spring Security. Now in today's video, we're gonna actually start coding it and we're gonna follow down to top approach this video, and in the next video we're gonna majorly talk about this level user detail service and the password encoder, how we can use it, how we can customize it, which all interfaces, classes are involved, each and everything we will go through it in pretty much deep way so that we have a better understanding when and where to change certain thing. So yeah, so let's go to the agenda of today's video. First we're gonna discuss about user detail service, and there is one interface which is called user detail. We're going to talk about this in detail. So at a high level, user detail is nothing but a way of representing a user in a Spring Security environment. Okay. Then we talk about granted authority interface, which is nothing but sort of used in authorization mechanism in the Spring Security framework. So it is nothing but it is kind of privilege that we assign to a particular user. If you can relate, there is multiple types of user. One is admin, one is client, customer, then internal, etc., etc. Then we're gonna talk about user detail service interface itself. So there is only one method inside it, which is load by username. So its responsibility is to only load a particular user based on the username. Then we're gonna talk about the user detail manager, which is the wrapper on above of user detail service. Since user detail service gives us only one functionality to load a user from our source, irrespective of source, whether it is from DB, LDAP, third-party service, or wherever it is. Okay. User detail manager on top of it gives some extra functionality like a CRUD operation, the complete CRUD operation. Okay. Now let's talk about user detail interface. User detail interface is a way of representing a user in a Spring Security. It is an interface. Interface is a contract that we do between two parties. So basically what happens, Spring Security as a framework needs to know beforehand what a user represent. Okay. The bare minimal cases that user can represent. Okay. Based on that, Spring Security developers design this framework. Okay. So these all are the bare minimum requirements in order to represent a user in a Spring Security environment. Then these are the bare minimum things we need to define. Okay. Of course, in real world scenarios, user is not only represented by these below methods or below parameters. There is much more parameters will get involved if you are working on a production application. Okay. So consider e-commerce site. When a user comes in, a user has multiple roles in it. User is related to the cart, user is related to the payments, addresses, and then a bunch of other things. Okay. But the bare minimum what Spring Security wants you to do is to have at least these 7 parameters. What is first? First one is get username. User should have its username. Then a password. Then in a authority means a user bare minimum can have a name, can a password, authority, which privileges he has, if his or she's account is expired or not, logged or not, if the password is expired or not, and if the user itself is enabled or not. So these are bunch of parameters that taken into consideration while developing this Spring Security framework. Okay, let's move ahead to granted authority interface. This is nothing but a way to represent a user authorization, means the privileges he or she has over a system. So let's consider of WhatsApp, a WhatsApp group. If you joined in any group, so there will be two things. One is a group admin, one is normal user or normal member. So normal member has some privileges, like he or she can send or receive messages and nothing else. Nothing else means they cannot edit the user group name, group pic. They cannot add or remove members. But at the same time, there will be one member who has admin privileges and has all this functionality to them. So those type of things is controlled using this granted authority interface. Now let's go to the user detail service. Now user detail service is a interface which is only responsible for getting a user. Who use this user detail service? The authentication provider that I explained in the above architecture. Authentication provider behind the scene uses user detail service to get the user, the requested user from the DB or whatever source it will be. Okay. Then sometimes what happens, we want to have some extra functionality on top of this one. We should be able to delete a user. We should be able to create a user. We should be able to do update on a particular user. Let's consider a few of the scenarios. So let's say you implemented a feature where a user, if given 5 wrong time password, you just locked a user. At that time, you won't be able to complete this feature with user detail service itself. Yeah, there will be some other way, other way around, a workaround we can do. That is that is doable. But in a more Spring Security framework aligned manner, in that case, we're going to use User Detail Manager because it has extra functionality on top of User Detail Service. Okay. So we can update a login saying, okay, you just enter 5 wrong time password, so your account is logged. Now let's connect with support. They will unlock your account and all. Okay. Yeah. So at high level, these all are the definitions. Now let's move ahead. So how these all are interrelated to each other? Okay. So see, basically here in the complete architecture, if I have listed down each and every classes and all, it will be too verbose. Okay. It will be overwhelmed. So the main components that is required in authentication, I listed down those. Okay. Now, don't consider it's the only components there. There are more components are there. So just an example as this one. So a user detail is nothing but a way to represent a user in Spring Security framework or ecosystem. Okay. This to represent, we are representing a user, and user detail service responsibility is to get a user. So users should have some parameters. It should have something that defines a user. Okay. So that's why user detail service is using this user detail interface or class. At the runtime, it will be class to represent a user. Then user detail represents a user, and user has many authorities assigned to it. That is represented by granted authorities. And that's why it is written, it can have n number of authorities. Then user detail manager. User detail manager is giving some extra functionality on top of user detail service. That's why it is using this user detail service. Now let's jump back to the coding and all. So I just created one project a simple basic project like we did earlier. Now, what we're going to do is we have a configuration. We have one project configuration. There we can define some certain beans. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do, first we are talking about user details. So I will just show you like how we can represent a user in a Spring Security framework. Okay. So majorly we can make use of Spring Security user builder class itself. Okay. And Spring Security by default provides a user class also that represents a basic user. I will show in a moment. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna return in memory details manager. Cool. This is where we are earlier. Okay. Now what we need to do, we need to create a couple of users and make sure that if we are trying to log in with that user, we are able to hit on our API. So we don't do, we just do simple thing, user dot with username Sandeep, and then sorry, and then the password, which is going to be 12345, and then a simple built-in. Okay. Now we're gonna create second one. This is going to be the admin, and the password is going to be the admin. So now since we over written this in memory user detail manager, ultimately inside of which we are using the user detail service. Okay. So that's what I explained earlier. User detail service has a functionality of loading a user, on top of which there is user detail manager, which gives some extra couple of functionalities. And there is one implementation that is done by Spring Security itself, that is in memory user detail manager. It is nothing. It is nothing but we are storing the user details in memory. So how long this user will be persisted till our application is up and running. That's it. Once application is down, our user will be deleted. Okay. And then when it is up, again, these two user will get assigned to this user detail manager. So now user one, now user two. Since this is a plain text password, we should force Spring Security to have no password encoder so that it compare the password in a text way, in a plain text way. Okay. Let's test our application. Okay. Our application is up and running. One thing, there is a note. There are a couple of other things also printed in console. So I just added some of the database thing for the teaching purpose. So just ignore it. Okay. With the basic pom.xml from the earlier version, earlier episode will be working. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here and we're gonna hit it. Cool. We get our response. Now try with admin. Let's see if our admin user is able to log in or not. Cool. There's login. Now give me some password. It is unauthorized. Okay. The Spring Security stops it. Cool. Now the second way, implementation. What are we gonna do? First, using Spring Security classes, using custom classes. Now let me quickly show you the how we can use custom classes. Okay. Now what I'm doing, I'm just removing it. Okay. There will be no user at runtime right now. Cool. What are we gonna do? We're just gonna create one user class which represent our own custom user class. And for time week, I'm just gonna put it in Pozo. No, this is a user. Now what we're gonna do? What I told earlier. If we have a custom user and we want it to be recognized by Spring Security, then Spring Security given some bare minimum properties that we need to have. Okay. What we can do here is we're gonna go on and implement user detail service. Okay. So what we're gonna have is implements user details. Cool. So these are the bare minimum properties that we need to have, bare minimum methods that is required by Spring Security in order to perform its own secure authentication mechanism. So if you see, there is only 3 methods and here it is 7 methods. So if you go inside it, these 4 are the default methods. That means we have its own implementation there. Until and unless you need to change it, you don't actually need to implement it once again. Because it is already default implemented in a default way. So that is one of more way Spring Security makes our life easier. So right now, what we're gonna have, we're gonna have a use or name for a user, and next we should have a password of a user. You can have bunch of other things, but yeah, for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of teaching, these two only required here as of now. Now I'm gonna go ahead and create a constructor, parameterize one, and then I'm just gonna set the properties. Okay, and then I'm gonna just make sure that we're gonna implement it in a bit. Okay, so first thing, password. Spring Security needs this password, so we're gonna return it. Spring Security needs a username, so we're gonna return it. Now it's time to implement. Return this authority. So if you see, it is expecting a collection of granted authority. So granted authority, as I told earlier, this is also one of the interface which has one method, get authority, which returns a string. Means in a text, simple text row, whether it is a admin, read, or bunch of other stuff. Okay, which all role it has. So this authority is nothing but a role, a user having which role. So if you come here, what I gonna do is we're gonna return a list of, because we are expecting a collection, and then something which extends this granted authority. If we go inside it, this is just single method only. So we can say as of now it is a functional, it is a kind of functional interface. Okay, so there is two way to give implementation of a functional interfaces in Java. If you don't know it, let me explain in a briefly way. First one is using anonymous class, and the second one is using the lambda one. I will show you. I will show in both the way. But if you want to learn more about these all Java stuffs, then go ahead and check in YouTube or follow the book Java the Complete Reference. It is one of the best book. Now I'm expecting a list of granted authority class which represents a granted authority. So first thing is what I'm gonna do is go by this one, granted authority. This is one of the way. Okay, for the better code structuring, let's create some enum roles. Just gonna put it inside. Just create one package called enum. And it is our enum. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create admin, then internal, then read. Now let's move back to our user class. So what I'm gonna return here, just a second. Return internal role. Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do, just gonna create roles dot admin dot name. This is one of the way. The same way, what we're gonna have, we're gonna so the same way. Let me show it here, so you know the clarity of the Java and the functionality of the Java itself. So here we written some bunch of line of codes, but with the lambda expression, just see what I'm gonna do. Just gonna return post.admin.name. That's it. So if you see here, we written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 lines. Here we written one line. That is the power of the lambda expression. It is one of the way to which replaces this anonymous inner type classes. Okay. So we created one custom user which has some role, which has some password, use name and all. Okay. Now we have a user. Earlier also we used to have a user, but the way of creating user is now different. In the previous way, we are taking help of user builder class, which is given by Spring Security. Here we are customizing our user class, and we have our own way of creating it. So now let's move ahead to the project config. Let's create a user. So let's create one user. So I'm gonna go and use my version, which is new user. Sorry. Yeah. So let me implement my version, username, user. So now will be Sunday, password will be just a second. make it public so it can be visible. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same way we can have admin 2 with a password. And okay. And now we're gonna do same way we're gonna assign it to our manager, which is managing our user and all. Okay, cool. So for the sake of trust, let me show it this way also. It will work. We wanna try it because we passed wrong password, and then when we're passing correct password, is hit, and then with username Sunday. So cool. So we learned two ways of creating a user. First way is using the Spring Security classes, the user builder class, and bunch of other stuff, and then using our custom classes. So let me do one. If we go inside it, if you see, this is the user class given by Spring Security itself. So in your application, if this is what your user represents, you are done. You don't need to implement it on again. Okay. If not, then you can go ahead and create in this way. You just need to make sure that you follow the contract that is Spring Security has to offer. Okay, you must need to adhere to it. Okay, then only Spring Security or mechanisms will be working. At it won't give you some unwanted exceptions. Okay, now let's move ahead to the second part. So yeah, as of now, we completed with point 1 and 2, this granted authority interfaces. We're going to talk a bit more about it in later part of the upcoming videos. But till then, bye bye. Happy Dasara. Please comment if you have any doubt. If you want to explain me things in more detail, more picturized way. Till then, bye bye. Take care, and do hit a like and subscribe button. Thank you.